into Wednesday afternoon. But if we look ahead now to the end of the week, and things won't stay settled for long as unsettled weather will move in from the southwest once again, but with some milder air too.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, nearly 1 year on from the devastating stroke that almost killed him, Thomas Markle finds his voice again to expose the destruction his estranged daughter Meghan has wrought on his heartbroken family.
Is it worth dumping
I've no sound
for the
either
rest
in my
of my life? Denying my grandchildren?
I'll implore the destructive Duchess to forget her twisted mission to ruin the coronation and reconcile with her loving father before it's too late. That's in my digest next, before my superstar panel give their view. Tonight, I'm joined by Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. Then Samantha Markle reveals all about Meghan's alleged attempts to destroy her alien's father's life as she makes a public plea for the Duchess not to overshadow the King's big day. Don't miss that bombshell exclusive later in the show. Plus, as both royalists and Republicans speak out against the suggestion, is it wrong for Brits to be invited to pledge allegiance to the King at the coronation? Lady Victoria Harvey, Kinsey Schofield and Peter Tatchell do battle in the clash. Also coming up tonight, the Albanian Prime Minister has fired outrageous insults at the UK for failing to stop his citizens breaking into our country.
Fought against it, and now we see that they have calmed a bit down, but
They are going through a nervous breakdown as a country, so we have to understand them.
But isn't it time his country took responsibility for the invasion of criminals via the Channel? That's our big debate tonight. And the £1 million mystery. More uncomfortable questions beckon for the SNP this week as the Sunday Mail reveals that cops are now investigating another £400,000 left to the party in wills on top of the probe into £600,000 in alleged missing donations. So is former leadership candidate Kate Forbes wrong to deny she's plotting a shadow government against whom's are useless? Or is new leadership the only way for the separatist movement to survive? We'll get stuck into that in the media buzz. Elsewhere tonight, with cancer nurses abandoning patients for the first time ever, should the government ban medics from playing politics with people's lives by striking? Calvin McKenzie, he's angry on this and he'll be here later. Plus, as this trans cyclist romps to victory in an elite women's race, why are sporting bodies sacrificing the hopes and dreams of biological women on the altar of woke gender extremism? Lawrence Fox investigates in the Fox Report. As ever, stay tuned for a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the press, and Carol Malone explains why she wants The Guardian's editor to resign after this cartoon landed the lefty rag in yet another anti-Semitism. Why? That's all coming up when we reveal a brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass later, plus Neil Oliver on the way too. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. You're watching GB News, Britain's news channel. Thank you for being here with us this Bank Holiday Monday as we count down to the Coronation. All our regular features, though, here too, as is Polly Middlehurst with the headlines.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story on GB News tonight, the deadline for the final evacuation flight from Sudan by UK forces has passed, with an estimated 1,000 British nationals remaining in the country. Flight tracking website Flight Radar says the flight is due to arrive in Cyprus just before 10:30 tonight. Over 2,000 Brits on 24 flights have so far been evacuated from the country, with thousands of Sudanese fleeing across the border into Egypt. Sudan's army and the rival paramilitary force say they'll extend their ceasefire for a further 72 hours. It was originally due to end this evening. Well, here at home, the General Secretary of the Royal College of Nursing has urged the Health Secretary not to be disrespectful to nurses amid their biggest strike yet. Pat Cullen's comments came as Steve Barclay said the industrial action was premature, as other trade unions meet to discuss the government's pay offer tomorrow. Staff in emergency departments, intensive care units and cancer care began their 28-hour strike action yesterday. It ends tonight. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has accused the government of not doing enough to stop the strikes.
Way back before Christmas, the nurses said, if you come in and talk to us about pay, we won't go on strike. The government sat on its hands for weeks and weeks and weeks, made a bad situation worse. So everybody wants to see that resolved. I think it is important to recognise the underlying causes of this, because nurses and many others have seen, a real drop in their wages and their living standards because of the cost of living crisis, and the government's got nothing to say to them about that. So I think, responsibility here lies at the door of number 10.
Away from home, violence has erupted in France during the traditional May Day Labour March. The Interior Ministry saying more than 780,000 people took to the streets nationwide. They're all protesting against a change in the retirement age. Police fired tear gas and used water cannon, with nearly 200 people being arrested. President Macron's government pushed the pension legislation through without a final vote due to a lack of cross-party support. Now, the former US President Donald Trump has visited his golf resort in Scotland as building work for the new course begins. And at the ceremony, he named the course on the Meany estate after his mother. Stepping off his private jet in Aberdeen earlier, Mr. Trump told reporters it's great to be home. He last visited in 2018 when he was in office. He'll later visit his course in Doonbeg on Ireland's west coast. Now, the brewing giant Heineken has pledged to invest £40 million into its UK operations, creating nearly 600 new jobs. The company runs around 2,400 pubs across the country through its Star Pubs and Bars brand. The brewing giant's expected to upgrade 570 of its venues, with a focus on what it's calling local neighbourhood-style pubs. And lastly, England's longest national trail is set to be renamed to commemorate His Majesty the King's coronation. Next week, the England Coast Path will officially be renamed the King Charles III England Coast Path. It'll be a 2,700-mile-long trail around the whole of the English coastline. 794 miles of the route is already open, and it'll be fully walkable by the end of next year. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB+ radio and on the TuneIn app. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's hard to put into words the personal damage Meghan Markle has caused to the family unit of our king. Prince Harry will spend less than 24 hours in Britain for the coronation of his father, according to new reports. There will be no time for any real reconciliation with the newly crowned Charles III or his Queen Camilla, who the Duke of Delusion trashed on a global scale as a dangerous villain just weeks ago. There will certainly be no time to make up with his brother, Prince William, who will not forgive the Sussexes for the relentless attacks made on both him and his wife without the ability to fight back. Indeed, even Harry's lone allies in the family, the Yorks, including Sarah Ferguson and Princess Eugenie, now have little time for the couple, I'm reliably informed. Tragically but predictably, Harry has found himself completely isolated within his own family since his toxic relationship with Miss Markle, who herself is on a publicity drive, pathetically designed to steal attention away from the king. So after months of purposefully keeping out of the spotlight as Harry shoulders the blame for that awful spare, in the past week alone from Meghan, we've seen the unveiling of a makeover, a botched PDA kiss cam appearance at the basketball, and even an announcement that she has signed with a Hollywood mega agent. It's a transparent, long-tested strategy, and it shows this couple's craven desire to destroy the British monarchy. There's another personal tragedy playing out thanks to Meghan's selfish behaviour, and that's the destruction of the Markle family, which has been laid bare over the weekend in a heartbreaking TV special featuring the first interview with Thomas Markle since he was almost killed by a stroke nearly a year ago. Having lost his speech, this good man, who raised Meghan as a solo father for much of her childhood and teenage years, has been fighting to talk again. And he appeared on Australian TV last night to make what they described as a deathbed plea to his daughter.
If she doesn't turn up for a stroke, if that doesn't move her, what would? These guys can tell you how close we were, Meg and I. And I certainly spent a lot of my life with her. And I don't know how she can throw all it away.
In the book, Harry describes Meghan as mourning the loss of her father.
Yeah.
Sounds as though you're dead.
Yeah, exactly. She killed me and then mourns me. Is it worth dumping me for the rest of my life? Denying my grandchildren? Is it worth all of that? Is it worth getting rid of her father?
Of course it's not, Thomas. So understandably, the Markles remain livid with Harry and Meghan's hypocrisy and cruelty.
I think if anyone would really make sure that family was connected, it would be someone like him.
We would hope so. But Harry's still a boy. One thing I'm proud of, I never played naked pool.
That's a good point.
That's true. And I never dressed like Hitler.
In my opinion, she would still be a waitress if it wasn't for Dad.
But putting all of that bad blood to one side, overall, there's just one thing poor Thomas wants.
If Meghan was here now, what would you say to her?
Let's go somewhere and talk. And I say, what's wrong? What? How can I fix this? How can I fix this? Of course, I love you. And the bottom line, Harry, nice guy. I love you for marrying my daughter, Meg. I love you. I love my grandchildren. I love to see them. I'm open to any kind of conversation. Thank you.
Bless you, Thomas. Now, Meghan is a woman who says she wants to improve humanity and help others. She says she's focused on kindness. But in practice, she has destroyed 2 families and cast a shadow over an event of great significance for the British royal family. So stop the attempts to ruin the coronation of King Charles and speak to your own father, Meghan, before it's too late. But to respond now, my superstar panel. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and the former MEP and political commentator Belinda de Lucy. Belinda, it's absolutely heartbreaking watching that, isn't it?
Oh, I watched it earlier and I felt such deep sadness. You know, Harry and Meghan have sold themselves as the saints of compassion, and I can't understand, no matter the hurt or pain that may have gone between their families, not to call your father when he had a heart attack to check if he was okay. It seems very cold to me. I mean, my dad is a twin and he didn't get on with his twin at all. In fact, they didn't speak for 30 years. And then out of the blue, he got a phone call from his twin brother saying, I've got prostate cancer. I know we don't like each other, but just check on yourself. And my dad did, and he had it too. But because of his twin, it was caught early enough. That's what families do. No matter the hate, the fights, no matter the pain, when it comes to the crunch, you're there for each other. And it's very sad to see Mr. Markle like this, because he looks a very vulnerable man, a very hurt man. And the least I think Meghan Markle could do is reach out to him before he dies.
Now, Carol Malone, you can understand, and I understand, I will be criticised for even talking about this interview tonight, because there's a lot of royalists who say all of the focus this week should be on King Charles III, and I really wish that were the case. But because of Harry and Meghan, they have created this sideshow. It is the way that Harry and Meghan treated this family that meant this TV special took place. And there was absolutely no need for Meghan to reappear over the last week with these 3 publicity stunts. I can see what she's trying to do. She wants to insert herself into the conversation.
Yeah, that's exactly what she wants. However, I mean, the idea that she would overshadow a coronation because she's had a new hairdo is stupid. Nothing, I mean, she's gone, if she thinks that's the case, she's gone farther down the rabbit hole than we thought. But, you know, when you watch that film there, you know, I feel desperately sorry for Thomas Markle. You know, he has been manipulated, and he was being a bit manipulated in that interview. But what he's saying is that, you know, it is his dying wish that he is reunited with his daughter. And, you know, you hear him slurring. He's learned to speak again. It's been almost a year since he's been able to speak properly. And the one thing he's saying is, how can I fix this? He's begging his daughter. He's literally begging her. He shouldn't have to beg the girl he brought up almost single-handed. Even if they don't get together as a family again, even if they don't see each other regularly, she should make time to see him before he dies. Because I tell you what, if you don't do that with families, if you let someone die on you in the way that Thomas Markle is going to die, I suspect, without seeing his daughter, it will haunt her. You know, you don't get away without scars with that. And I think you're right to talk about, you know, this is a woman who sells herself on compassion. Where is her compassion for this man who may not be in this world for very much longer? Samantha Markle put it quite well in the interview where she said, you know, she talks to Harry about losing her father. She said she didn't lose him, she iced him, which, you know, basically killed him in her head. He doesn't exist for her now. Shame on her, you know, absolute bloomin' shame on her.
And Samantha Markle will be here later in the show, actually, for an exclusive live TV interview. Benjamin Butterworth, look, this is a state event, the coronation, but it's also a family event. And isn't it really sad to see the impact that Meghan Markle has had on two families? Because it's not just the Markles who she's torn apart, is it? It's also the Windsors, the family of our king. The king will not have his grandchildren, will not have his youngest son there for most of this weekend's events.
I mean, look, I think Prince Harry had made his mind up about how he perceived Charles and William and the rest of the royal family before Meghan Markle ever turned up. So
they didn't fall out.
I think it would be an exaggeration to blame that on her. I think there's no doubt with those repeated appearances in the last week, and we'd spent months saying what happened to Meghan Markle. She had gone mysteriously quiet. Even when Spare, Harry's memoir, came out, she didn't say a word. And so you'd have to be naive to think this wasn't anything but a pre-planned publicity stunt to do exactly as you said. But when it comes to Thomas Markle, you know, he spoke at greater length there than I've seen him do before. He's quite a quiet man, it always seems, in his interviews. He's not naturally someone who wants to share his personal emotions. But ultimately, whether it's about these two or generally, I don't think a daughter owes a father anything if they've made the decision to cut them off.
Why?
And we don't know what might have happened behind closed doors. Who knows, for any host of reasons why they might have fallen out before this royal shenanigans went on.
But don't you think that, Thomas Markle has been a victim in all this since the start? Before the wedding, the royal family made a massive mistake. They should have sent two people over to America to look after him. The world was coming for Thomas Markle as being the father of the bride, and yet he was left alone to deal with this barrage of media.
He hasn't done anything
and he's done nothing
that
wrong.
Harry and Meghan haven't done themselves, which is sell their story. It's not criminal to do that.
I think actually he was taken advantage of when that initial photo came out. So I have a great deal of sympathy.
He was.
The person I don't have sympathy with, and it'd be interesting to hear from her, is Samantha Markle.
Why?
Because, she tried to bring a lawsuit against Meghan for defamation that got thrown out the first opportunity by the
Well, she
judge.
says that she's going to take that back. Actually, back into court.
I think she's been trying to make more money and attention off this than anybody else involved in the process.
I think you're right, and Thomas Markle is the victim in all this. He has been from day one. No one's actually looked after him, not his family, not the family we've seen on this film, and not Meghan. And they should all be ashamed of themselves. This guy may not live for very much longer.
Well, Carol, who have been the two people there by his side since the stroke? Thomas Markle Jr. and Samantha Markle.
I'm not sure that's true. The film said they haven't been in the same room since the wedding.
Yes, but Thomas Markle Jr. Immediately moved his life to be alongside Thomas Sr. Of course, Samantha Markle has lots of physical issues.
Yes, she's got MS.
She has multiple sclerosis.
Harry and
in a
Meghan
wheelchair.
are polling lower than Prince Andrew in America at the moment. Their popularity has completely slumped. They're not going to ruin or touch the coronation. They're not going to have any impact, I think, at all on it. Harry's going to dip in and out, thank goodness. And it will be Charles's day, and it's the British public's day. It's not the Harry and Meghan show.
Well, I want to know, will Harry and Meghan swear the allegiance to the king?
No, but we have to swear allegiance to him, don't we? If we swear allegiance to John, we have to swear allegiance to Harry too.
Will Meghan?
Bad news.
Very interesting question. Belinda de Lucy, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone. I can say almost certainly Meghan will not. But coming up, as a male-born trans cyclist claims victory in an elite women's race, why are sporting bodies sacrificing the dreams of biological women at the altar of woke gender extremism? Lawrence Fox has been investigating this very shocking story. He's up soon. But next, in the clash, as we've just discussed, both Royalists and Republicans are speaking out on this issue about whether it is wrong for Brits to be invited by the Archbishop of Canterbury to pledge allegiance to the King at the coronation and his heirs. A royal rumble debate awaits with Lady Victoria Harvey, Kinsey Schofield and Peter Tatchell. They're all live in the studio next. You can weigh in down at gbnews.uk. Vote in our live poll at GBNews on Twitter. We're back after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities.
especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Neil Oliver is on the way, but first, The Clash. And with the coronation now just days away, Lambeth Palace has been forced to defend its suggestion for the public to swear allegiance to King Charles after it was fiercely criticised by Republicans, clarifying that the millions watching across the country will be invited, not expected or requested to say, "I swear that I will pay true allegiance to your majesty and to your heirs and successors, according to law, so help me God," raising the prospect of the public swearing an oath to Prince Andrew and Prince Harry, before adding, "God save King Charles, long live King Charles, may the King live forever," when prompted by the Archbishop of Canterbury. But this has even divided royalists, with our very own Angela Levin saying this is a step too far for her. So tonight I'm asking, is it wrong for Brits to be invited to pledge allegiance to the King at the coronation? Dan at gbnews.uk. Vote in our live poll at GB News on Twitter. But to debate this now, I'm delighted to have in the studio tonight, direct from California, she is our US royal insider, Kinsey Schofield, the activist and journalist. He's a Republican who has just admitted he will be protesting the coronation, Peter Tatchell, and the socialite and royal insider, Lady Victoria Harvey. So, Lady V, let me start with you, because you actually don't think they should have changed this tradition in the first place.
No, I just, something like as big as a coronation, I just don't believe that these new changes are something that people actually are looking for. I think it is something that, why are we going to change it now, having this allegiance? Why should everyone swear allegiance? Why not just leave it how it was before, and certain people swear allegiance and not everyone, because not everyone is going to want to.
Kinsey, I guess the reason behind it is they felt this was a way to almost democratise the coronation, right? Open it up to everyone.
But it's going to backfire, possibly.
Well, I
So
think
that's
it
what's
is.
happening,
It is
right?
backfiring,
Yeah.
actually, big time. But Kinsey, you think this is sweet. You think, as an American, this is a lovely thing.
I do because, well, also I think this generation is so obsessed with participating. They want the selfie. They want to be involved. This is a great way for people to be able to take a photo, to talk about this 20 years from now. You know, to say that they were involved in this historic event that does not happen, you know, quite often in our lifetime. So I think that it's romantic. It's, you know, I think it's a unique tradition. I mean, he's not my king, but I don't mind doing it just because I want to be involved in such a historic opportunity.
Peter Tatchell, arguably, though, this is a gift to Republicans, because you must be shocked to see someone like Angela Levin, you know, a staunch monarchist and royalist who loves the royal family, saying, no, this is just too much even for me.
It does seem like a sign of royal weakness that people are being invited to pledge allegiance. And also it smacks of desperation, and understandably so, because according to polls, 52% of the British public are not interested in the coronation, and only 15% say they're very interested.
But I think that's going to change, isn't it?
It might, and, you know, people are entitled to their view, but I think it's clearly a fear that this is going to be a bit of a damp squib.
Lady V, you have no time for anti-monarchists, do you?
But you know, like, the thing when they say, oh, the figures, I mean, I wasn't asked. Were you asked? Like, I mean, I don't know where they get these figures from. No, I don't have time for anti-monarchists. I do not.
How do you feel about Peter protesting on the day?
I mean, look, you know, you look like a nice enough man. But, you know, like, my feelings were, you know, being asked about this is if it was, like, illegal immigrants, just say, that were, you know, going against the crown, and I would just tell them to leave and go and live in, you know, Russia or China or in a communist country where there is no sovereign, where there is no royal family.
Well, Putin's making a very good show of being the new czar.
I mean, for you, like, if you're a very anti-monarchy, why do you want
But
to
Peter, how do you respond to that? Because what Lady Victoria is essentially saying is this is part of being British. Why don't you just get on board?
Well, for those who want to celebrate, I'm 100% behind them. But I think there are some people, in fact, a sizable minority of people who clearly are not interested.
You can protest every other day of the year. You can have political parties. At the end of the day, there is no big political support behind republicanism. You know it. So why ruin the day? You're going to be at Trafalgar Square, I believe. That is right near where the celebrations are going to be taking place.
Yeah, but not right near. The coronation is going to take place down at Westminster Abbey.
I'm all for protesting and all of that, but if I was in charge of this coronation, I would arrest all the heads of all of those kind of people that would be protesting. I would put them all in jail, like pre-coronation, and then release them after. Because it's...
Even if they've not done anything criminal?
No, but if they have any record of doing anything. So all those not stop oil, all of that lot, just put them in jail.
I mean, going back to the pledge.
Yeah.
I mean, we pledge true allegiance. That's what the word says, true allegiance. Well, what is true allegiance as opposed to false allegiance? Then it has to be finished with, so help me God, when half the British public have no God and no religion. It's just absurd.
What true allegiance would you die for your country?
Kinsey Schofield, is it an issue, and I know Lady V will have a lot to say about this, so we'll come to her in a second, but is this an issue that a lot of folk have lost faith in Prince Andrew in particular, and also Prince Harry? So we're not just swearing allegiance to King Charles and to Prince William because it's his heirs and his successors as well. That includes Andrew and Harry. So there'll be some folk who are real royalists but have an issue with Harry or Andrew.
I think that's a brilliant observation, but that's not what I didn't think about that at all when I read this. I think that I think people hesitate because there's an idea of you're better than us, and we are the little people, and we are worshiping you. And I feel like that might be the disconnect. But that's an interesting observation. I don't think of Harry. I don't think of Harry or Andrew at all when I think of
Lady V, officially though, we would be pledging allegiance to Harry and Andrew too.
By the way, I'm going to send you a 200-page document about some of those girls, which tells you everything. But just getting
You're referring to the Prince Andrew
But just getting back to that, it's like you have to see them as completely separate from, like, all the gossip, all the stuff the journalists write. All of that is like, this is the royal family, this is their role.
But are you happy to pledge allegiance to Prince Harry? Because you're no fan of what he's done.
No, obviously, no. And the thing is, those two are very different. You can't even really compare them. One has completely deserted his country, and one wants to be involved, but he has this person who's completely falsely accused him. So it's very different.
I mean, Peter Tatchell, this must be an interesting one for you too. Do you feel like the Republican movement has been boosted by the actions and behaviour of Prince Harry and Prince Andrew?
Oh, yes, definitely. But overall, we see that in the last few years, public support for the royal family has declined significantly, particularly among younger people. And
Harry.
support
Harry and Meghan.
Meghan's doing a great job.
And support for an elected head of state is rising. So that's the trend. That's the way things are going.
But so you would say that actually Prince Harry and Prince Andrew have been good for the Republican cause?
Well, not by intention, but the other point to make is, of course, that we do have a situation where the king has been imposed upon us. The public were never asked for their consent or agreement. And I think if the royal family had any PR sense, they would have put it to a public vote.
I want to ask you, so would you rather be like in America, that political situation, which is so crazy, so polarised?
No.
Imagine if we had no royal family in this country, what the elections would be like, because they would get so much power through an election. It would be insane.
But I don't support an American-style president.
So
I support a low-cost, purely ceremonial president like they have in Ireland or Germany. It works well, has public consent.
But people come to this country.
What low ambition you have for Britain. And what about the £1 billion, by the way, that this coronation is going to raise for the economy?
I mean, look at all the tourists everywhere, like already they've all in town with their cameras.
And look, I sort of agree. I don't think the excitement has been there early on, but it's going to build. Because mark my words, before every Jubilee of the Queen, there are all of the reports. The public aren't into this. There's not the same excitement. I'm afraid to say, Peter, I think come Saturday, it's going to be very...
It's very busy by Buckingham Palace.
Fascinating debate.
I actually got one of those corgi toys.
And don't mess with Lady Victoria. She'll lock you up.
Right. I mean, no one put me in power because everyone's going to end up in the tower.
OK, that was the Royal and Showbiz journalist Kinsey Schofield, hot off the plane from Los Angeles, the activist and journalist Peter Tatchell, and the socialite royal insider Lady Victoria Harvey. So who do you agree with? Is it wrong for Brits to be invited to pledge allegiance to the King at the coronation? From Dom, an invitation is an invitation. Do it if you want, don't if you don't. Everyone in the armed forces, police and public officers already swear allegiance to the monarch. It's not an unusual thing. Elliot writes, it's more weird than wrong, but definitely rather unsettling. Blatant displays of allegiance of this kind are not very British. And from Earl, this is via the email, this invitation has inevitably led to backlash and therefore was a bad move. But I and millions more will be celebrating and cheering on our king at the weekend regardless. Hear, hear. And your verdict is now, and wow, we're divided on this. I find it absolutely fascinating. So we will continue this conversation over the course of the week, actually. 48% of you say it is wrong for Brits to be invited to pledge allegiance to the King at his coronation. 52% of you like it. So, wow, given we are a very British channel, we support the monarchy on the whole, that is a fascinating result. Now, coming up, as London's failed Mayor Sadiq Khan plans to extend ultra-low emission zones into the home counties, how worried should Brits be about the deranged and undemocratic march to net zero? Neil Oliver live on this shortly, but next, after a trans cyclist easily wins an elite women's race in the US, why are sporting bodies sacrificing the dreams of biological women at the altar of woke gender ideology? Lawrence Fox investigates straight after this. Time now for the Fox Report with the actor turned activist Lawrence Fox. And world cycling's transgender rules have come under fire after a biological male romped to victory in an elite women's event in the US. 27-year-old Austin Killips secured the overall victory of the Tour of Keela after finishing 89 seconds ahead of the nearest competitor, taking home £28,000 and the Queen of the Mountains jersey in the process. But women's rights campaign friend of the show, Sharon Davies, the Olympic medalist, has slammed the sport's governing body, the UCI, for allowing Killips to compete, saying this is beyond disappointing. Those in charge should hang their heads in shame. The UCI is not fit for purpose. So, Lawrence Fox, this is continuing, isn't it? The war on women's sports is continuing. What's World Cycling thinking?
It's pretty sad, you know. It's like, you know, why are we allowing blokes to go on bikes against women? It's just silly. And also, why are we allowing women to defend and fight this stuff? It's like men need to stand up and go, hang on a minute, you're a bloke, get out of it. That's what would happen in a real normal world, but we live in the clown world. So, you know, we just have to sort of watch and observe. But it's really sad. Someone's going to lose a medal. Someone's going to lose a position. Someone's going to lose a competition victory that they wanted. It's pathetic.
And it wasn't even close, was it, Lawrence? 89 seconds, which is behind the lunacy. We know men and women are physically different.
She's got wonderful thighs, Dan, doesn't she? Very good quadriceps, doesn't she?
You think Fantastic. It's down to that?
I think it's down to her wonderful thighs, got nothing to do with the fact that she's a bloke.
Yeah. No, this is a really big concern. I'm totally with Sharon Davies here. But look, Lawrence, this is continuing in the UK too, because the horrific abuse that the women's rights advocate Kelly J. Keane has suffered at the hands of trans extremists abroad has now come to the UK. So these are the violent scenes the women's rights activist was faced with while leading a meeting for her Standing for Women campaign at Speaker's Corner, which is all about free speech, in Hyde Park just yesterday. Look at this.
Look at by the way. Just one. How was it?
I mean, Lawrence, it's unbelievable stuff. Why do the trans cult have such an issue with hearing from women?
Well, listen, I was at the Let Women Speak thing last week, and I missed the joys of this week. But you know, let's reach our hearts out to white upper middle class men who can't get on the grievance Olympics ladder. You know, they can't do it unless they identify as trans activists. But, you know, Torquil, Tarquin, all of these pathetic little twats. So, no, it's past the watershed. I'm allowed to say it.
You're allowed.
I'm so happy.
Still very naughty, but you're allowed.
It's just embarrassing. I mean, at what point do we just go, guys, seriously, stop it? Kelly J. Keane is brilliant because what she's doing is she's making something very specific. She's going, what is a woman? She's doing what Matt Walsh did in America. She's doing the same thing. And what we should do is we should just support her as people because, you know, these sort of radical communist numpties are just, they're an embarrassment. I don't even know why we give them airtime other than the fact that they do bother to turn up and wave their silly little minor attractive flag around and go, you know, we've got a problem. But, you know, it's as I've said to you a million times before, massively homophobic, massively misogynistic, mentally ill people. They used to build asylums for them.
I think it's really important to show them, Lawrence, and I'll tell you why, because to me, you see Kelly J. Keane and she looks calm and she looks normal and she looks composed. She looks like the sort of person that usually you'd think the MSM would want to give a platform to. And the other side looks deranged and criminal and quite violent and mad, but actually the people being platformed are the deranged ones. And I think that's why we have to keep pointing it out.
But she looks like a mum, right? She just looks like a mum.
And she is. She's a mum.
We've not had this chat, but I want to have this chat. It's like, as a gay guy, what do you think of this? Like, what do you think of it?
I think what has happened to the so-called LGBTQI+ movement has never made me feel more disconnected with what they describe as a community. It's not a community, it's a cult. I completely agree with you that it is homophobic. I completely agree with you that it is anti-lesbian. And I think it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this subject, because, Lawrence, here's the thing. I believe that I would have been told growing up that I should have been a girl. I should have been a woman. If I was growing up in this current climate. And so I actually feel like a lot of this is about bringing down gay folk, trying to say that gay folk don't exist as well. So personally, I've never felt more disconnected from LGBTQI+++. I can't stand it. I'm a gay man. I love lesbian women. I'm not part of that alliance. It's an intolerance. It's like an alliance of intolerance, is how I view it.
Initially, when you said that you were going to be trans, I was like, that's really bad. But now I'm looking at you, I'm going, you'd be quite hot as a bird.
Oh, shut up. I would be the ugliest, least successful woman in the world. And that's the point. That's the point. We all experiment when we're growing up, don't we? We all think about our sexuality, our gender, and that should be allowed, because the point is kids just have to find themselves. They shouldn't have to find drugs, and they shouldn't be indoctrinated by teachers. So personally, I look at that mob, that LGBT plus mob, and I think, no, that's not me. I don't want to be a part of it, and you can call me a bigot all you want, but I am the least bigoted person in the world. So that's my view. Lawrence Fox.
Also, Dan, all of us are, right? None of us are prejudiced or bigoted towards other people. We are not. That's why people come to this country, because they know that we're not prejudiced and bigoted people. And people just need to get on board with the fact that the Torquils and Tarquins and these white, indoctrinated, middle-class university students, they're just a bore off. Just bore them off. That's what we need to do.
Lawrence Fox. Thank you so much, Lawrence. We will speak next week. But coming up, the shameless Albanian Prime Minister takes fire at the UK for failing to stop his people illegally making their way into Britain. But isn't it about time he took responsibility for the invasion of criminals via the Channel? My superstar panel lock horns in that unmissable debate imminently. But first, London's failed Mayor Sadiq Khan intends to expand his hated and undemocratic ultra-low emission zones from the capital to the home counties. So just how worried should cash-strapped Brits be about the latest step of the deranged march to net zero? Only one man who can bring sanity to this situation. It's Neil Oliver, who's live with me next.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive, because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken, How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith.
Is that not the start of the slippery slope?
It's very much so.
And the big moral questions of the day.
I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Samantha Markle on the way, but first, Neil Oliver is tonight's outsider. And the UK's determined but deranged march to net zero has been shifted up a gear as London's failed Mayor Sadiq Khan plans to expand his hated ultra-low emission zone beyond central London and into the home counties. Unfortunately for Brits, Khan's climate scheme, which charges drivers whose vehicles are too old or polluting, has already had a devastating impact on some long-standing businesses, with the boss of the iconic furniture store, Healed, warning that the ULEZ obsession has turned streets into a ghost town. And as Khan's ULEZ madness creeps further outside London, the dystopian nightmare of 15-minute cities threatens to become a national reality. So, Neil Oliver, we've got to be so wary about what's to come, because Khan, he knows how unpopular this is, but he doesn't care.
I know it's the wrath of Khan. Sometimes it feels, I don't know, like efforts like Sadiq Khan's, his mission is to run London down, to annoy Londoners, and I suppose ultimately even to see to the destruction of business in London. It's hard to read it any other way. I say all the time, Dan, who do these people think they are? In people like Sadiq Khan and the councillors in Oxford and the rest of it, and all across the piece, all these jumped up nabobs just inviting themselves to interfere in every aspect of people's lives. Who do they think they are? And net zero, it's all part of that bigger picture. You know, the 15-minute ghettos, the ULEZ schemes like that of Sadiq Khan's. It's a suicide note. And it's being written on behalf of millions, if not billions, of people who will die as a direct result. There's just no two ways about it. At least 80% of the energy that is consumed in the world comes from fossil fuels. And yet we're being coerced away from fossil fuels. Renewables don't offer an alternative, not at all. Nuclear is out as well because the Greens don't like nuclear. We need more energy, Dan, not less. Net zero is absolutely taking the population, the civilization of planet Earth, the civilizations of planet Earth backwards. I don't know, I read somewhere, something like 3 billion people alive today use less electricity, have access to less electricity than that we depend upon to run a modern fridge freezer. You know, and if people don't have access to cheap, reliable, available energy, they live miserable lives. You deny the energy and the fertilizers and everything else that comes from fossil fuels that are the target of net zero, people will simply die. People will die of starvation. People will die. Climate changes. Climate.
But yet Khan will say, oh, no, you're going to die of pollution. That's been proven to be a total lie, a fallacy. He doesn't care. But the issue that so many of us have, Neil, is that when it comes to the march to net zero, when it comes to ULIS, it feels like there's almost a one-party state. There's very little alternative, which is why you see people up and down the country resorting to civil disobedience over this stuff.
I don't understand why people behave. I really don't. I don't live in London, but I don't really understand why 10 million Londoners just don't get in their cars and drive in and not pay the fines. Just because if everybody acted together, just peaceful civil disobedience, then that collective group should not be broken. You know, they're going to put everybody in ULEZ jail. I don't understand why people are continuing to put up with this nonsense. People are just being coerced into smaller, colder, hungrier lives. There is no other outcome from net zero than millions, billions of people dying. You know, they talk about the fear about the climate changing. Climate changes, that is without a shadow of a doubt. That's what climate is actually. That is climate. It's change. But as it changes, we need more energy. We need access to more cheap, available, reliable energy, because that is what will enable the poorest billions to cope. On every continent, it's cold that kills people, not heat, by a huge margin. Fossil fuels keep people warm in the cold. Air conditioning keeps people cool when it's hot. A loss of life to extreme weather has gone down by 90-odd% because we have had the energy to cope in the past century, and that energy has come from fossil fuels. There won't be a tree left on Earth. If people have nothing to rely upon for heat and cooking but wood, there won't be a tree left. It's insanity. It is a suicide note for the world. And the sooner people act together collectively to push back against these petty dictators, the better.
Yeah, petty dictator. What a perfect description of Sadiq Khan, the failed London mayor. Neil Oliver, so great to speak with us, Neil, back 6 o'clock. Saturday night here on GB News. But coming up, in a bombshell exclusive, Samantha Markle reveals all about Sister Meghan's alleged attempts to destroy her unwell father's life as she makes a public plea for the Duchess not to overshadow the King's coronation. Samantha is live with me, fresh at the back of that damning Australian TV documentary very shortly. But next, the shameless Albanian Prime Minister has unbelievably slammed the UK for having a, quote, nervous breakdown over thousands of illegal migrants from his country coming to our shores to commit criminality and disorder. My superstar panel take him on straight after this. We're back in 2 minutes.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News, we're starting the conversation and having the debate that the establishment won't have. No one will be cancelled. Join me at 4 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday. We'll be discussing all the big topics of the weekend.
Oh, get cracking!
Always honest, always fun. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, almost a year on from his devastating stroke, Thomas Markle has spoken for the first time in public to reveal what it feels like to be brutally disowned by his daughter Meghan and make a plea of peace ahead of the coronation of King Charles III.
If Meghan was here now, what would you say to her?
Let's go somewhere and talk. And I say, what's wrong?
But while ignoring her own father, the Duchess of Sussex has thrown herself back into public view, even announcing she's signed on with a Hollywood super agent. So, in an exclusive interview tonight, Samantha Markle makes a public plea to her sister, asking Meghan not to overshadow the King's big day. She's live with me shortly. Also coming up tonight, in a fresh tirade, the Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama has outrageously taken aim at the UK, despite his citizens illegally storming our southern border.
I fought against it, and now we see that they have calmed a bit down, but they are going through a nervous breakdown as a country, so we have to understand them.
But should Rama, who is best mates with Alistair Campbell, by the way, focus on stopping the mass exodus of young males from his country instead of trying to blame us? That's a big debate with my superstar panel soon. And tonight, I'm joined by Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda Bertolucci. It's been yet another scandal-ridden weekend for the SNP after the Sunday Mail reported that the police are investigating £400,000 of money left to the party in wills. Meanwhile, Kate Forbes has denied bombshell reports that her supporters are secretly organising a shadow government. But as the crisis deepens for the separatist movement, does Humza Useless need to be replaced sooner rather than later? We'll thrash that out in the media buzz. Plus, as cancer nurses walk out on patients for the first time, should the government crack down on the Marxist union barons playing politics with people's lives? Governor Mackenzie responds in Uncanceled. And finally, are the left still plagued by anti-Semitism? I ask after the socialist newspaper The Guardian apologised for this cartoon of the BBC's ex-chairman, Richard Sharp. So we discuss if their editor, Catherine Viner, deserves to be sacked in tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Plus, first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press. That's right after Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story from the GB newsroom tonight. 2 final evacuation flights have taken off from Port Sudan in northeast Africa. Flight tracking website Flight Radar says one plane has now landed at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, the other expected to arrive in the early hours of the morning. Sudanese doctors working for the NHS are among those passengers. A total of nearly 2,200 Brits have been airlifted out of the country. The government says Royal Navy warship HMS Lancaster will remain on standby in the Red Sea to support any further evacuations. Sudan's army, meanwhile, and the rival paramilitary force say they'll extend their ceasefire for a further 72 hours. It was originally due to end this evening. Now here, the General Secretary of the Royal College of Nursing has urged the Health Secretary not to be disrespectful to nurses amid their biggest strike yet. Pat Cullen's comments come as Steve Barclay said the industrial action was premature, as other trade unions meet to discuss the government's pay offer tomorrow. Staff in emergency departments, intensive care units and cancer care began their 28-hour strike yesterday. It ends tonight. The Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has accused the government of not doing enough to stop the strikes.
Way back before Christmas, the nurses said, if you come in and talk to us about pay, we won't go on strike. The government sat on its hands for weeks and weeks and weeks, made a bad situation worse. So everybody wants to see that resolved. I think it is important to recognise the underlying causes of this, because nurses and many others have seen, a real drop in their wages and their living standards because of the cost of living crisis, and the government's got nothing to say to them about that. So I think, responsibility here lies at the door of number 10.
Starmer. Now, violence has erupted in France today during the traditional May Day Labour March. The Interior Ministry saying more than 780,000 people took to the streets nationwide, protesting against a change in the retirement age. In Paris, police fired tear gas and used water cannon, with nearly 200 people being arrested. President Macron's government pushed the pension legislation through without a final vote due to a lack of cross-party support. The former US President Donald Trump has visited his golf resort in Scotland as major building work starts for a new course. At the ceremony, he named the course on the Meany estate after his mother. Stepping off his private jet in Aberdeen earlier, Mr. Trump told reporters it's great to be home. He last visited in 2018 when he was still president. He'll later visit his course in Doonbeg on Ireland's west coast. Now, the brewing giant Heineken has pledged to invest £40 million into its UK operations, creating nearly 600 new jobs. The company runs around 2,400 pubs across the country through its Star Pubs and Bars brand. The brewing giant's expected to upgrade 570 of its venues with a focus on what it's calling local, neighbourhood-style pubs. And lastly, England's longest national trail is set to be renamed to commemorate His Majesty the King's coronation. Next week, the England Coast Path will be officially renamed the King Charles III England Coast Path. It'll be a 2,700-mile-long trail around the whole of the English coastline. 794 miles of the route is already open, and it'll be fully walkable by the end of next year. That's all from me. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
Tomorrow's news tonight. Now in our Media Buzz, first front pages are in hot off the press. The Metro's coronation countdown declares Crown the Hatch, with the upcoming festivities due to offer a £120 million boost to pubs as Brits prepare to sink a staggering 62 million pints this weekend. Bring it on! The Eye leads with the unforgivable impact of the latest round of nursing strikes as they worsen the NHS backlog and put patient safety at huge risk. Calvin Mackenzie on this shortly. But first, my superstar panel back with me. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and the former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. And the scourge of illegal migrants crossing the English Channel has long been a national emergency, with more migrants arriving from Albania than any other country last year. But now, in the midst of this crisis, Albania's own Prime Minister has brazenly lashed out at the UK's immigration policy. Despite being a safe NATO nation with no existing conflicts, Albania saw almost 2% of its entire adult male population arrive on British shores in 2022. And with under 10% of these asylum seekers being successfully deported, the vast majority are left sitting pretty in taxpayer-funded hotels, often being encouraged to the life of organised crime by their compatriots. But Edi Rama, Albania's Prime Minister, refuses to take responsibility. Instead, he's decided to goad us.
Things that the Brits have said about Albanians made you very angry, to say the least.
I forgive the Brits because they are in a so bad place. Yeah, we have fought against it, and now we see that they have calmed a bit down, but they are going through a nervous breakdown as a country. So we have to understand them. They have lost a lot of points of reference. And they have, they are really in a bad place.
I'm sorry, but who the hell are you, Prime Minister Rama, to hit out at Britain's bold attempts to stem the illegal flow of your citizens into our country? So, Carol, isn't it time for Rama to get his own house in order, given he's going to have no working male adults left at this rate?
The guy needs to go. Really, the population of Albania is only 3 million anyway, and we know that the biggest proportion of men between 20 and 40 who are arriving on these shores are Albanian, the ones crossing the channel. So he's going to have no men left there. But, to actually say we're in a bad place, if we're in a bad place, it's because of his countrymen coming over here. And, they're not, they're coming in, they're lying to start with, saying that they're victims of modern slavery. But what's happening is the Albanian gangsters from here have infiltrated the traffickers over in France, and they are organising for Albanians to come to have them employed in this country in drugs, in prostitution and in guns, because the Albanians have taken over this country now in terms of crime. And how dare he sit there and say we're in a bad place? We're in a bad place because of his countrymen doing what they're doing. And what is he doing to stop this? I know we've had a couple of agreements with him, but it's not actually working. There's less Albanians now this year than there was at this time last year, but it doesn't mean that it's actually stopped. And how dare he have a go at us? We're only, he was having a go at Suella and about the language that she used to describe Albanians. Never mind the language she's using. What about what his people are doing?
What about the language he's using?
Well,
saying that we're collectively having a nervous breakdown. No, we're trying to secure our borders. Benjamin, are you prepared from a hard left point of view to finally stand up for Britain here against the madness of Rama?
Yeah, because you screeching on the sofa doesn't look like you're having a breakdown at all. I mean, honestly, he makes an absolutely good point, which is that this...
He makes a good point.
This country is acting like a bloke having a midlife crisis. Between Brexit, our identity of the royal
we know
family...
you hate middle-aged blokes, don't you? Especially if they're straight and white.
Well, you've got the nail on the head. We're having a crisis, whether it's Brexit, whether it's royalty, whether it's Britain's place in the world.
But he's not talking about that. He's talking about immigration.
He is talking about that when he talks about Britain not understanding where it is. Now, I think that we should welcome...
because we want to stop illegal immigration.
And I think that's fine. I think lots of countries haven't let Albanians come as refugees, but we should open our doors to Albanians as economic migrants because we need their workers. They work hard and our economy would be better for them.
They're not coming here to work for this country. They're coming here to work for the Albanian gangs in illegal practices, drugs, prostitution, guns. They're not coming here to help this country.
And the truth is, I think one of the reasons it's complicated for Albania is because lots of that money goes back.
I would just like to say I completely agree with the Prime Minister of Albania when he says that someone's going through a nervous breakdown. It's not the British people, it's our government, it's the political class. Their duty is to protect our borders. It's not up to Albania. It's not their responsibility to protect the borders of our country. We have opened the doors, we've put signs in the windows to criminals, rapists, murderers, terrorists, saying, not only are you welcome into the UK, we'll put you up in hotels, we'll give you money, and I tell you what, we'll pay your legal fees. So he's right to point the finger at our country. Like the mayor of Calais also said, he was saying, we are dangling a carrot to criminals to come here. And it's up to the government to stop it, not up to the Albanian government.
As far as I'm concerned, we should put adverts on Albanian television saying Albanians come to Britain as economic migrants. We are short of workers. They have many young people in Albania.
We are not short of workers.
We have a points-based immigration system now. If people want to come, they've got to have the skills and they can apply for a visa, Carol, using the usual process. This is not a country at war and decline.
They don't want to come to work for us. They want to come to work for Albanian criminals. But and you know what's happening now in the detention centres? They're being put in detention centres, big cars are coming and taking them away. It's the Albanian gangsters. They're not working for this
country. If we took them as economic migrants, you'd have fewer people coming illegally.
More people is not the answer. More people is not the answer.
I want more immigrants.
Yeah, well, you're mad. Now, the trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney has spoken out for the first time after causing Bud Light sales to plummet, in which they tried to redirect attention away from the hot topic of gender. Look at this.
It's day 9,610 of being a human, and I'm going to try to leave gender out of this since that's how we found ourselves here. I've been offline for a few weeks, and a lot has been said about me, some of which is so far from my truth that I was like hearing my name, and I didn't even know who they were talking about sometimes.
Now, Dylan's re-emergence, no longer talking about girlhood, comes after Bud Light released a new marketing ad aimed at winning back the hearts and minds of their lost American consumers, this time choosing to celebrate an American institution with its focus on country music. Watch.
Cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right, and the radio.
Well, it's certainly an improvement. I'd say Bud Light have learned their lesson, perhaps too late. So let this be a warning to other companies planning to go woke. Belinda DeLucy, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone, do stand by, because coming up, as the SNP is plunged deeper into crisis with the whereabouts of a total of £1 million now under police investigation, could leadership runner-up Kate Forbes be plotting a shadow government against whom's useless? My Superstar panel tackle this, plus we'll see more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages very shortly. But next, as Meghan Markle's estranged father slams her for burying him and mourning him while he's still alive, her sister, Samantha Markle, joins me live for an exclusive interview to plead to the Duchess not to overshadow the upcoming coronation. Samantha Markle is going to be here next, so make sure you don't go anywhere.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Our countdown to the coronation continues now with a Samantha Markle exclusive. Now, just hours ago, the tight-knit Markle family went public with the depth of hurt they've experienced at the hands of the estranged runaway royal Meghan. Among the heart-wrenching moments of their bombshell Australian documentary was this admission from Meghan's father, Thomas, who rediscovered his voice after a crippling stroke to condemn her for, quote, killing and then mourning Thomas while he's still alive and ignoring his deathbed plea.
In the book, Harry describes Meghan as mourning the loss of her father.
Yeah. I knew my way around grief, and there was no mistaking it. This was pure grief. She was mourning the loss of her father.
Sounds as though you're dead.
Yeah, exactly. She killed me and then mourned me.
After a lengthy period away from the public eye, Meghan recently made a convenient return to the spotlight just weeks before King Charles's coronation. She signed to a new Hollywood talent agency, boasted a bold new look, and enjoyed a public date night, complete with a cringe kiss cam stunt at the basketball. So, Samantha, it's great to talk to you tonight, fresh off the back of your very emotional TV reunion just 24 hours ago. But do you think your sister has engaged in a deliberate PR campaign in recent weeks to overshadow the coronation? And what would be your message to her tonight?
Well, I can't speak for her, but yeah, it seems like, you know, a PR opportunity in close proximity to the coronation. I'm just going to say, you know, she and Harry are notorious for channeling Diana. And I wondered to myself, what would Diana say at a time like this? I can't help but believe she would say, Harry, Meghan, shush. Just allow your father and Queen Camilla to be happy and to enjoy this. And so, you know, I think they just have to let go. Our family certainly didn't want anything going on with family matters to upstage the coronation. In fact, my father has extended his well wishes and blessings moving forward. I think it's going to be an exciting time, and it should be allowed to be. So Harry and Meghan, in my opinion, need to just step back, keep all of the drama aside, and be considerate, be unselfish, be loving, be forgiving for whatever, you know, you hold in the way of a grudge, and just move forward. You know, this is an incredibly historic and beautiful time. So, and if you can't do that, well, don't know what to tell you. Shame on you. Grow up, let go. You know, everybody says, let Harry and Meghan live and let live. Well, that works both ways. So let's see if they can do it.
Because the thing for me, Samantha, is I know how Meghan operates. It's very obvious. It's very transparent. She went away for months and months and months. She could have delayed her re-emergence into the public eye until after the coronation, but she purposefully has decided to do these string of announcements. What do you think is driving your sister at the moment? Is she jealous that she's not going to be part of the coronation? Or is she purposefully wanting to turn the focus onto her and away from Charles and Camilla because of her bitterness over what went on when she was in the royal family?
Well, in my opinion, that's always been the case. You know, it always seemed to me whenever they didn't get their way, there was some public drama, but let's go back and look at the fact that there were always plans, seemingly, to go back to Hollywood. There were deals being made on the side while in royal duty. And so, you know, I mean, I think they should have cut to the chase and done all of that a long time ago. She should have returned to Hollywood a long time ago and saved everybody the grief. But especially now, you know, it's just good on her if she thinks it's such a wonderful thing. I think it's a step down. I think it's a resignation because she knows she couldn't get her way. And I think everybody now, I think the monarchy will thrive. I think Great Britain will do wonderfully. And I just think it's karma, you know, I think she failed at getting revenge. I don't think she got revenge. I think it reflected poorly on her. And she and Harry need to wish them well now and just move on. It's really time to grow up.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Samantha, I found your TV reunion, the Markle reunion yesterday, very emotional, actually. It really touched me to see Thomas speak like that. I have always thought Thomas is a good man who has been wronged by his daughter, but he was still prepared to offer this olive branch to Harry, who's been so cruel about him, and to his daughter. It was very clear he just wants a final reunion, a final chance to be able to speak in person. So it obviously broadcast nearly 24 hours ago now. Have you as a family heard anything from Meghan or Harry?
Well, I'm just going to say, I think a lot of the public misconstrued that as groveling. This is how parents are. King Charles is no different. When you have rogue children, you know, you love them, you want them to do the right thing, and you're always extending the olive branch. But that doesn't mean they don't have to be accountable. So what that special left out was, yes, he would love to be able to speak to her and make things better. He's not responsible solely for fixing it. I think the burden is on her, the burden is on Harry to make things right with the royal family, with our family. And so that being said, there wasn't enough said in that broadcast in this special that my father wanted to say, but the burden is on her to apologize, to change. She always said, be the change you want to see in the world. Well, talk is cheap. Do it. Be the change you want to see in the world. And that means being accountable. So, you know, I think my father and King Charles both feel that way. And sadly, you know, they can wear brave faces, but it's always hurtful. But the burden now is on Harry and Meghan to change and to apologize. And that's my opinion.
Have they been in touch?
Well, of course not. Of course not.
I guess we can always hold out hope that maybe they would see it and change, because to me, the Markle family came across like a good and honest family, a family that they should want to be a part of. But look, Sam,
well,
sorry, you go.
Yeah, here's the caveat, though. If they do, it has to be sincere. It can't be for a photo opportunity or a PR stunt. You know, it's good for them and it's good for everyone around them. It's got to be a win-win. They have to do it for themselves, too, for the children, for the royal family, for our family, for the world. Be the change you want to see in the world.
Sam, I couldn't agree more. Sam, I just wanted to show you this PR stunt from last week at the basketball, where your sister seemed to turn away from Harry when he tries to go in for a kiss. What did you make of this moment, Samantha?
Oh, wow. Well, I think any body language expert, anybody would. It's so different and so inconsistent with her character, because previously in all photographs, she was, you know, pining over him, putting her hands all over him, grabbing his hand, grabbing his back. So what's up with this? Is this a symbol of separation? This is different. This is seemingly a statement on her part that she's not all that touchy-feely right now towards him, and it's kind of sad. So maybe that's telling the rest of the world, all of us, that they are at an impasse and maybe they're making decisions to part. They have to work that out. But in the meantime, they have to work out how they treat everybody around them, not only for the past, but moving forward. And so hopefully maybe counseling intervention could help. Time to change.
Yeah, good point, because it really interests me. And I'll play you the clip and you can react off the back. But Gail King, who is, you know, their BFF in the American media, has been forced over the past week to speak publicly and actually deny that there's any issues in Harry and Meghan's relationship. Have a watch of this, Samantha.
That Meghan and Harry are living their truth, and I think that they will make the best decisions for themselves. That's what I think. I think they're very solid. They're very solid, and they don't consult me about about decisions. They make their own decisions, and so far, they're doing what works and what's best for them.
So Gail King says they're solid, but were you surprised she would feel she had to say that at all if everything was okay?
Well, I mean, that was ridiculous because in the same breath, she also said they don't consult with me about their decisions. So what Gail King was really saying was, I have no idea. So she shouldn't have said anything. You know, I think that was just diplomatic fluff. In other words, it meant nothing.
It was interesting, wasn't it, when she said that speaking their truth. I always find this so fascinating, Samantha. Like, what does that even mean? They don't have their truth. There is the truth. And I think we saw again last night, for example, they have told lie after lie about the Markle family. So what does their truth mean? That they live in a world where lies are acceptable?
That's the world now, Dan. It's the woke world. Everybody's truth is their truth, their perception. Dylan Mulvaney, the whole biological thing. Let's ignore science. It's my truth. Let's get real. There's the truth, there's reality, there's science, and you can be running whatever script in your head you want if you're woke. That doesn't mean it's the truth, but fine. We'll defer to, okay, that's your truth, but it's not the truth in most cases. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. And actually, Samantha, finally, that was one thought that I was having, actually. Do you think one of the reasons that Meghan backed away from the Markles and backed away from you in particular is because you share you don't share her worldview? You know, one of the reasons I think you're so great, and I follow your comments all the time, is that you're anti-woke. You know, you don't sign up to all of her hard left madness. Do you think she was potentially embarrassed of you and the family politically?
No. I don't think she has hard left views. I think that is posturing because I doubt she would allow her kids to be gender mutilated. I doubt very much that, in other words, her whole life has been predicated on a life of privilege in our family and those whom she associated with. And never at any time was there a demonstration of woke ideology and narrative. So it seems to be a trendy thing, a bandwagon to jump on to garner false alignment or to feel a sense of groupness. I don't think it's sincere. Maybe she'll grow out of it. Maybe she won't. But I personally don't see her espousing woke ideology. It's rhetoric. It's just talk, seemingly. If I'm wrong, somebody please disagree with me, but she hasn't demonstrated.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference with our side of the argument, isn't it, Sam? We're prepared to have the disagreements. They're not. But look, very powerful tonight, and I really hope she listens to you, Stop the PR stance until next week. Let this be about King Charles. Sam Markle, I love your work. Please pass on my good wishes to your father. Our heart broke for him last night, and I know many people and many millions of people in the UK feel the same.
Thank you for having me. God bless. God bless King Charles and Queen Camilla. And we'll move forward excited about the coronation. Thank you, Dan.
Absolutely. Samantha Markle, thank you so much. Now, coming up in Uncanceled, with NHS cancer nurses walking out on patients for the very first time and the RCN's Pat Cullen threatening strike action could become an annual event, should frontline healthcare workers be banned from striking? Former editor of The Sun, Calvin McKenzie, live in the studio very soon. But next in the media buzz, after yet another scandal-ridden weekend for the SNP, could Humza Yousaf's former leadership rival Kate Forbes be secretly plotting to overthrow him? My superstar panel thrash this one out next. See you in 2.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities. especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest. Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. More front pages have just been delivered. And the Eye leads with the devastating impact on NHS backlogs caused by the latest nurses' strike, and also features an astonishing investigation by our very own Benjamin Butterworth, reporting that the Iranian regime is plotting to assassinate British citizens on British soil. Goodness me. The Daily Mail leads with a major poll showing that Britain supports the monarchy with little appetite for republicanism, as the coronation is just a few days away. But more on the media buzz now with tonight's superstar panel. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the aforementioned Benjamin Butterworth, and political commentator Belinda de Lucy. Now, it's been another weekend where the SNP has been mired in scandal. In a shocking new development, the Sunday Mail has reported that money left to the party in wills is under investigation by police as part of Operation Branchform. The paper reveals that the bequests total £400,000 and are being examined alongside the whereabouts of more than £600,000 donated for a second independence referendum. And in yet more drama, the Sunday Telegraph has revealed that the UK's elections watchdog is poised to impose its own auditors to probe the SNP's finances, with the party still not having replaced the firm Johnston Carmichael, who resigned in September. This coincided with a bombshell story from the Sunday Times, which said that supporters of Kate Forbes are secretly plotting a shadow government to overthrow her leadership rival Humza Yousaf. Now, Forbes took to Twitter to deny the coup, but as Scottish separatism implodes around the current First Minister, does she desperately need to relaunch her leadership bid? I mean, Carol Malone, this is just a torrent, a tsunami of scandal on a weekly basis. I would ask where the rest of the MSM is covering this story, firstly, because this was the Tory party. If this was another ruling party, they would be all over it. But at the end of the day, Carol, Yousaf is not going to last, is he?
I mean,
but at this stage, is the SNP even going to survive?
He's way out of his depth. And you know, I mean, I hope to God Maureen Forbes is putting together a shadow government before the next election. I hope she is, because they can challenge him. The rule book of the SNP rule book says that he can be challenged. What are you laughing at him for?
It was Kate, not Maureen.
Sorry, do you know who Maureen is? Can I tell you who Maureen is? She's my cousin who lives in Scotland. So if you're watching, Maureen, sorry, Brian, I just named interject you there. Kate Forbes, right. Maureen, my cousin, my God. I haven't seen her for years. Anyway, yes, and I do, I mean, he's not meant for this. The stuff is swirling around and the questions are being asked. What did he know about the missing funds? Did he know about the mess that the finances were in before it's been revealed? It is astonishing to me that the SNP have got away with this so long. You know, they can't get an auditor now to come in because if they don't have a full set of accounts by the end of May, they lose 1.2 million.
Just imagine if this was the Conservative Party.
Oh, yes, can you imagine? But they can't get an auditor because it's a poison chalice. Who's going to take the SNP finances on? And the fact that this party, that 400 grand of donations given to them by people in their wills has gone missing. I mean, this stinks to high heaven.
Yeah. And it's now £1 million.
Yes,
missing
£1 million quid. So if Useless didn't know about it, he should have known about it.
And by the way, he says he doesn't. He said he didn't know.
But he should have done.
Benjamin Butterworth, Kate Forbes, is she the sole hope now of reviving the SNP's fortunes?
Well, look, in terms of many of her views, and probably just about every one of her views, I think she'd be a tragedy if she were First Minister of Scotland. It would be a disaster. But I think when it comes... Because I think she's wrong about independence, I think she's wrong about economics, I think she's wrong about social issues like gay marriage, I think she's wrong about Christianity. She's wrong about just about everything.
There's a little matter as that she was the Scottish people's choice.
Well, hang on. I mean, what I would say is that, you know, we don't know what happened, and all of these questions I would point out that you can ask of Humza Yousaf, you can also ask of Kate Forbes. She was the finance minister. She was second in charge in Nicola Sturgeon's government.
I guess she would say she was the finance minister of Scotland. She wasn't involved in the SNP's finance.
Oh, I get that. But my point is that these were in the tiny inner circle of people in charge of Nicola Sturgeon's government. And so I think it's valid to, you know, if she wants to try and say these questions can't be asked of her, I think that would be a very dubious claim.
Although it's increasingly looking like the SNP was run as some sort of dictatorship, Belinda.
I mean, it's like from a movie. I am so blown away by the fact this isn't top stories across the country.
It's barely mentioned on the British Bashing Corporation. It's barely mentioned on Sky News. It's barely mentioned on ITV News. Oh, but guess what? They led on Boris Johnson and a cake every day for about 4 months.
Well, one of the reasons I think that Scotland's in such trouble politically now with the SNP imploding is that it's been a one-party nation for so many years, with barely no opposition whatsoever, no one scrutinising them, no opposition party holding them to account firmly and strongly. And then you had the media, BBC, Sky, the top papers, giving her a free pass, giving the party a free pass. And look at what we've got. This is why there needs to be a much stronger
opposition. They treated her... I mean, this is what I find so hilarious, right? On this show, for years, I have been calling out this woman for being scheming.
And you've been spot on.
And she was actually treated like a queen.
It
was almost like she wasn't an elected Prime Minister, an elected First Minister.
But do you remember that we had a VT here a couple of weeks ago where Sturgeon actually made it clear she didn't want to appoint an auditor. She made it clear.
She told her members, let's not talk about
go there. And you have to ask yourself why. So, I mean,
why did the auditors resign? This is what I think is incredible.
Of course.
I think they have a moral duty to
Indeed,
tell...
we need to know.
Well, I would like to know that. But this idea that Kate Forbes should come in... Look, SNP members voted. It was a legitimate democratic vote, and Humza Yousaf won.
You
It's
say
his right to be First Minister.
It was the SNP party's vote. It was not a vote with the Scottish
but that's the same way Rishi Sunak
it was sped up.
Well,
it was sped up. Here's the key point. It was sped up compared to previous votes. Now, why did they speed it up? They knew that there was a police investigation going on. Useless was the continuity candidate. Did they think that we have to potentially hurry up this election in order to avoid any allegations emerging? So I think much more will come of this. But look, finally, former US President Donald Trump touched down in Aberdeen earlier today on his first trip back to the UK since his official state visit in 2019. But unlike his successor, doddery Joe Biden, who visibly shunned the UK on his trip to Northern Ireland, Trump enthusiastically embraced his UK roots.
Mr. President, how do you feel to be back in Scotland? Mr. President...
See, that's how you treat your host, Joe. This comes after the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where Biden desperately tried to brush off claims that he's too old to lead by making possibly, and this was definitely written for him, the weirdest comparison ever.
You might think I don't like Rupert Murdoch. That's simply not true. How could I dislike a guy who makes me look like Harry Styles?
I'd say Tutankhamun is a bit more accurate, Biden. But Lucy, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone do stand by, because coming up, after The Guardian is forced to apologise over an anti-Semitic cartoon of ex-BBC chairman Richard Sharp, should the artist and the paper's editor resign? Well, a member of my superstar panel thinks they should quit in shame. And that will be revealed as we decide tonight's greatest Briton and Union jackass. But first, in Uncanceled, as the Royal College of Nursing warns their strike action could last years, and we see cancer nurses walking out on patients for the first time, should the government crack down on these dangerous union barons? Calvin McKenzie, live in the studio. We're back in just 2 minutes' time, so don't go anywhere.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching. Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank. My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for Uncanceled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And for the first time in history today, cancer nurses officially downed tools in a, quote, disrespectful strike in a row over pay that has threatened to last years. Members of the Royal College of Nursing and more than 100 NHS trusts are carrying out a 28-hour walkout that ends at midnight tomorrow. Health leaders warn the third NHS strike in 6 months will have a very significant impact on patients. And Fleet Street legend Calvin McKenzie doesn't disagree. Writing earlier today, the only reason nurses aren't banned from striking with the military and police is that nobody ever thought they would be so heartless to abandon the sick and dying in A&Es and cancer wards. So Calvin McKenzie, we really now surely have to look at banning this sort of action because people are going to die here.
Right. So there's been an even more serious development tonight in which the management of Colchester Hospital in Essex have revealed that they knew that the ICU was going to be really short of staff. So they went to the RCN, who had promised, we will allow a certain number of nurses to come in. And they agreed a certain number would come in, and they named them, OK? The management then called up the nurses today saying, yesterday, are you coming in? And they refused to come in. So all this old nonsense that you read from the RCN, oh, take my word, nobody will suffer, completely untrue, because ICU was massively undermanned and they weren't allowed the number of really sick patients that should have been in there. Only one patient got in. So all this old nonsense about the RCN, oh, you can rely on us, when push comes to shove, our members will turn out and they will fight to save the people they really care about, the patients, absolute cobblers. Absolutely.
It's truly shocking. And I guess we don't know why. We don't know if it was a moral issue or if they were just enjoying their bank holiday Monday, couldn't be asked. We don't know.
I totally agree. But whatever it was, there was an agreement between the management of that hospital and the Royal College of Nursing. And that agreement did not work.
Well, isn't one of the shocking things here that the RCN, you know, which is a hard-left Marxist union, has actually lost control of its members because, of course, it recommended that its members accept the pay deal. Then they tried to launch an illegal strike. Steve Barclay actually had to go and get a court to stop it. So the RCN, regardless of how Pat Cullen wants to appear as some sort of Mary Nightingale, they have lost control of their members, and their members have bought into the rhetoric and now want this to continue in perpetuity.
Right. So that's the next issue.
Yeah.
Does the RCN's actions and leadership actually represent their workforce? My sense is that literally, if they offered them a couple of Haribos now, they would end it all. The RCN have turned out to be completely out of their depth, don't know the feeling of their own members, and actually don't know what the deal is to get everybody back to work. But that issue at Colchester, next time you hear Pat Cullen say, rely on us, we'll turn out to fight for your mum, we'll break the strike for your mum, it's completely untrue.
Well, indeed, but Cullen, this is one of the things that's really making me sick with all of this. You know, Pat Cullen gets such an easy ride, you know, because we know the establishment media, the MSM media, they're basically with her. It's a bit like what we were talking about earlier with Scheming Sturgeon. She never got tough questions. Pat Cullen doesn't get tough questions. They clearly support her cause. And I think Pat Cullen has really difficult questions to answer. And here's a reason she doesn't come on GB News, because she's not prepared to answer those tough questions, whereas she'll turn up on Sly News or the British Bashing Corporation, where she's given a total easy ride every time.
Yeah, it's a form of reverse misogyny, isn't it? Because she's a softly spoken lady from Northern Ireland and she puts everything in a nice way. Nobody gives the hard questions. Whereas, of course, if you're from the RMT, you're some rather grisly old Londoner. You think, well, I'll give him a smack.
Yeah, so she's doing a good PR job. We can agree with that. Good PR job for herself.
And the other aspect is that it's called the Royal College of Nursing, which gives it some kind of rather glowing kind of adjective, which doesn't apply to the nastiness, which is really going on, the potentiality of killing people.
And what's this about Great Ormond Street Hospital, the Children's Hospital, which was also impacted?
Right, so the Great Ormond Street, actually, they didn't offer this kind of deal, which they offered but couldn't deliver at Colchester, to Great Ormond Street. So Great Ormond Street said, well, let's see what publicity does for you. So they put out a thing saying, why should the children suffer because of this dispute? At that, Miss Cullen then decides, hold on a second, this looks like bad PR to me. Oh, we'll deliver people. So that's what's happening now. So they're looking all the time at how the media are likely to react to stuff.
Exactly, but bad luck if you needed help in Colchester over the past 24 hours. What an extraordinary story. Calvin McKenzie, thank you so much. We'll speak very soon. But it's time now to reveal tonight's greatest Briton and Union jackass. And my superstar panel return, Carol Malone. Who's your nominee for GB?
For the second week in a row, it's Rishi Sunak for saying he will never call the Brecon Beacons by its new Welsh name. This was a name that was imposed by an alliance of idiot, virtue-signalling politicians and civil servants who didn't consult with the local residents or the 4 million people who use the park every year. They just said the word beacon was out of step with the ethos of climate change and changed it. Tosh.
Benjamin Butterworth, your nominee.
Mine is a guy called Vahid Beheshti. He's a British Iranian. And you mentioned that in tomorrow's newspaper, I reveal about how British agents of the Iranian regime have been trying to assassinate Britons on British soil. This guy's been on hunger strike for 68 days outside the Foreign Office, one of the longest in history, to try and get the government to listen to. That, I think, is truly heroic.
Wow, fascinating scoop. I'm sure this is going to get followed everywhere. Belinda de Lucy, your nominee?
Mine has to be King Charles III. Whether you like him or not, he is giving us the most wonderful week ahead of joy and celebration, making this country the envy of the world on Saturday as we all unite in tradition, pomp and ceremony that is so precious to this country. Thank you, King
look
Charles.
at that. Do you know what? I've got to go with King Charles. I've got to go with King Charles simply because I actually think, despite what a lot of the media want you to believe, we are behind this coronation as a country, and so that's why he's tonight's Greatest Briton, kicking off our countdown to the coronation. Carol Malone, who's your Union Jackass nominee?
I've got two of them. It's Catherine Viner, the editor of The Guardian, and Martin Rosen, who was the cartoonist from The Guardian. Both need to resign or be sacked after the publication of the vile anti-Semitic cartoon about Richard Sharp's resignation as chairman of the BBC. You don't have to be Jewish to be deeply offended by this cartoon.
And that is the picture we have to show you because you've got to understand.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And, you know, why is it the people who shout the loudest about being anti-racist are, in fact, the biggest racist of the lot? Guardian, these two should be fired. Never mind given the opportunity to resign. They should be fired.
Benjamin, does the left-wing media have a problem with anti-Semitism?
Oh, I thought that cartoon was anti-Semitic, without doubt. And I think that... You know, I don't think the editor of The Guardian should resign. That sounds a bit like cancel culture to me.
She should have pulled it.
Benjamin, your UJ?
Mine is Richard Sharp, the former chairman of the BBC.
Subject to that cartoon.
Yes, indeed, but he is a Tory stooge who undermined trust in the BBC, couldn't be relied on, and was dubious about what happened with that £800,000 loan that ended up in Boris Johnson's bank account.
And Belinda de Lucy, your Union Jackass nominee.
Mine is a movement called Republic. This movement wants to abolish the monarchy. It's their right. They can protest any day of the week, but they've decided to protest on the very coronation day, like the killjoys and bar humbugs that they are. And not only that, they've put a calling out to other countries across Europe to say, come on, everyone, let's join the protest. Come and join us and let's muck everyone's day up on Saturday. Bar humbug to them.
Because we know all of those folk in Europe would love the coronation to fall flat on its face. It won't, but it's going to be the double win for Belinda because Belinda is kicking off this week in a very nice way, down to Republic and They're Not My King campaign. Do it any other day of the week, not on the day of the coronation. Although, look, I'm prepared to have the debate and Republic will be here later in the week because, you know, all views here on GB News, but not the day of the coronation, folks. Come on. Belinda de Lucy, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone, my superstar panel, thank you so much. I'm back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. Next up, though, it's Headliners. Thank you for joining us this bank holiday Monday. Good night.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us 4, plus a special guest. Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, that is
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, you're with GB News. In a moment, headliners, but first let's bring you the latest news headlines. And 2 final evacuation flights have taken off from Port Sudan. Flight tracking website Flight Radar says 1 plane has now landed in Cyprus. The other is expected to arrive in the early hours of this morning. Sudanese doctors working for the NHS are among the passengers. A total of nearly 2,200 Brits have been airlifted out of the country. The government says Royal Navy warship HMS Lancaster will remain on standby in the Red Sea to support any further evacuations. Meanwhile, Sudan's army and the rival paramilitary force say they'll extend their ceasefire for a further 72 hours, originally due to end this evening. Here, the General Secretary of the Royal College of Nursing has urged the Health Secretary not to be disrespectful to nurses amid their biggest strike yet. Pat Cullen's comments come as Steve Barclay said the industrial action was premature, as other trade unions meet to discuss the government's pay offer tomorrow. Staff in emergency departments, intensive care units and cancer care began their 28-hour strike action yesterday. It ends in about an hour's time. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has accused the government of not doing enough to stop the strikes.
Way back before Christmas, the nurses said, if you come in and talk to us about pay, we won't go on strike. The government sat on its hands for weeks and weeks and weeks, made a bad situation worse. So everybody wants to see that resolved. I think it is important to recognise the underlying causes